Well, I guess I'm live. And what do I do when I'm live? I have no idea. I don't know what to do when I'm live. Although it'll be nice to talk about something when I'm live, but usually when I'm live I get nervous. I get jittery, I get shaky, I get nervous, I get sweaty. Because I've got the whole world watching me. So, live, huh? Man, you guys make me get up early in the morning. Because you know what happens is, because I've set this time for live at 10 a.m., anytime I've set, like, okay, usually I'll wake up at like 7 or 8 without saying anything or without any alarm. But when I know that I'm supposed to get up early so I can do the live thing, oh, my body's like, forget that. We're going to make you wake up at 9:45 or something. And I hate that. Like anytime, if let's say I'm waking up at 7 or 8, let's say I have to fly at noon somewhere. I'm like, oh, I don't need to set an alarm. But for some reason, if I don't set the alarm, I'll wake up late that day. It is so crazy. Like your body, once you tell your consciousness, oh, I have to actually wake up this time at this time, then your consciousness just go haywire. Like, well, I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to go completely against of what you want me to do. So today I'm like, oh, I'll wake up, I'll have my coffee, everything, doing everything. And I'm waking up at like 9:15, 9:20, and then I'm like, oh no. So I don't know if I should set a schedule like this every week, man. I should do this more later on. Maybe like noon or something. So today, let's talk about directional strength and what do they actually mean. See, when we think of directional strength in Vedic astrology, we think of it as a weakness or strength of the planet, which is not really the right way of looking at it. Look at directional strength as the guiding light of the planet. How much light can it show you to guide you on a certain path that you're trying to achieve? How good of a map does a planet gives you to get its goal? That's what directional strength kind of really means. It is pretty much the guiding light of the planet. How much light do you have regarding the planet so you know what to do when the time comes or when the situations arises? But it doesn't mean that because your planet doesn't have the directional strength, it's completely defunct of strength, or it's not going to be able to give you any good things, because a lot of people, including me early on, was all about, oh no, no directional strength, oh it's bad. Direction strength, it's good. But that's not how we look at it. Like for example, in a birth chart, let's talk about the directional strength of planets and why there's directional strength. So the first house, which planet or planets get directional strength? It is Mercury and Jupiter. Mercury and Jupiter, these two planets get the directional strength in the first house. Then we move to the fourth house. Which planet gets directional strength in the fourth house? Moon and Venus. Okay, that's the fourth house. Which planet gets directional strength in the seventh house? Saturn. Okay. Which planet or planets get directional strength in the 10th house? Mars and Sun. So now that we know this, and now I'm sure you all have read this in many, many books about directional strength, how do you actually use this? What were the sages and the rishis were trying to show us with the directional strength? Well, they were trying to show us a guiding path on daily basis or on an activity that we want to do. So if, let's say, we look at the first house represents the self, the body. First house is the head. Like first house is this part and above. Okay? This part is the face. This is the third house. This is the third house. So first house is our physical body and our head, our brain. That's why Aries and Mars represents brain. So if you ever look at a brain surgeon, they'll have a prominent Mars. But Jupiter is intelligence. Jupiter is the divine knowledge. Jupiter is biology, Jiva Karka, Jiva Atma. Is the guru, is the teacher. Mercury, what is Mercury? Mercury is the student. Mercury is our curiosity. Mercury is our comprehension. Mercury is our learning skills. So now you have these two planets coming together. Okay, so one is here, and they're coming together. Boom, on the head. Does that make sense? When Mercury and Jupiter are sitting in the head, what is happening? You are easily able to understand knowledge. You're easily able to memorize things, understand what the teacher is saying, understand what the book is saying, understand whatever medium of learning that you are learning through what they're saying. So this is why Mercury and Jupiter are given a great value and given a great strength on the head. Mars doesn't get directional strength on the head. It rules the first house. It doesn't get directional strength. Mars on the head is what it's going to do. You're going to take action first and then think. So you're going to kill somebody first and then think, should I kill you? Should I have killed you or not kill you? This is why Mars does not do good on the ascendant. If you have Sun in the ascendant, your ego takes over your learning. Oh, I don't need to learn this. I already know this. Oh, I am a Brahman caste. I cannot be learning from a Kshatriya or something. The ego comes in. So Mercury and Jupiter get the great strength upon the head. Now if you take the wheel of the sun, you know when sun transits, the first house, second house, third house, fourth house, 10th house is around noon. So when sun comes onto your head at 6 a.m. or whenever the sunrise is, that's where the directional strength of Mercury and Jupiter is most active. That is where, this is why we get up early to go to school. This has been there for ancient times, 10,000 years and beyond. Students got up at literally 4 a.m. in the morning, took their bath, cleaned their faces, ate their breakfast, and by the time sun was rising, they were already sitting in front of the tree, and the guru would come and start teaching because of the fact Guru knows, the Jupiter knows that now I'm with Mercury. This is why Guru and Shishya, Guru and a student, Mercury and Jupiter are now interacting in the morning. They're both now together. This is why they're both getting directional strength. So now student and teacher are interacting. Whatever the teacher says, you learn, you retain. This is why it's always excellent to read any kind of a book, read any subject, start any subject in the morning. This is why they say that whenever a Jyotish course begins, whenever an astrology course begins, it should begin when either Jupiter is in the ascendant or while the sun is rising. You proceed your rituals for either opening up your astrology school, opening up, or like starting to teach. That's why they do that. This is the direction that the Mercury and Jupiter brings. Whenever you wake up in the morning and the sun is rising, your Jupiter and Mercury are active upon your head. The energy of Jupiter and Mercury, wherever they are in the sky, they're affecting us. Now we take the other direction strength. We'll take Moon and Venus. So first of all, the fourth house where Moon and Venus are strengthened, what is the fourth house? Fourth house represents home, emotions, mother, nurturing, land, real estate, vehicles, kitchen, food. So Moon is what? The mother. Venus is the pleasure, the wife, the spouse. So when these planets are transiting in the fourth house, that's where the most important strength is. So what happens at night? Fourth house is where Sun is is completely opposite of his direction, which is a midnight hour. And this is why, actually, if you were to ever buy a property, this is why things don't happen so easily. Whenever people are trying to buy a home, trying to buy a vehicle, they're doing it at most oddest of hours because that's how life is. But if you wanted to make a purchase of a vehicle or land, if you ever have a car dealership open at midnight, sometimes they do, like on 4th of July, Christmas, here in US, they're open till 1 a.m. That's the time where you should be seeking that pleasure of buying a vehicle, because that's where the time where Venus is greatly strengthened, the midnight hour. Because remember, head is the 6 o'clock. That's where Mercury and Jupiter are. You shouldn't be buying land and property at that time. You should be learning at that time. Fourth house is the house of also rest, sleep, pleasure. All those activities strengthen at the fourth house matter. When you want to use your creativity, when you want to do something more creative, that's the best time, the midnight hour, when Venus and Moon are completely at their strength. Your emotions are connecting with the astral plane of imagination. And especially during midnight is when you are closest to your spouse. You're in the bedroom, you're sleeping right next to your spouse. That's where you have the most strength between you and your spouse. When you're a child, you're sleeping with your mother during midnight in the same bed. That's the strength of Venus and Moon. So especially whenever Venus and Moon are transiting the fourth house, so obviously in nighttime, less than 0.001% of real estate transaction will take place or vehicle transaction will take place. They all have to take place in the daytime. That's how the rules are. But what we see here is that whenever Moon is transiting the fourth house, which is the karka, the real karka of the fourth house, that's where these activities are strengthened. That's where you should be trying to go buy your vehicle or going and doing things related to the land. Because Venus in the fourth house will only be there during nighttime, because it's only 48 degrees away from the sun. So that's the strength of Moon and Venus. Anytime we cook, we're cooking at nighttime, because of the fact that's when mostly all the natural activities take place of food. You eat dinner when? At night. What is dinner? Food. What is food? Moon. Nourishment. Okay? This is why in India, and it was so weird. In India, mostly, I'm sure you guys do that too right now. Mostly you guys eat dinner at like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. Back in India, from 9 p.m. my mom used to start asking us, so what do you guys want for dinner? 11 o'clock, 11 p.m. eating dinner. Is that how it is in India still? I wanted to know, do you guys still eat dinner late night in India? Because that was a normal for me. It was so strange when I came to US when I was 12 and I saw my uncle who we were staying with cooking dinner at 6:30, 7 p.m. And I'm like, what? They're cooking dinner now? And it was so strange. Yeah, see, if India you still eat at night, that's why it's the directional strength of the Moon and Venus. You're seeking pleasure. You're eating nice food, but also you're getting nourishment. It's the fourth house. Then you look at the seventh house of direction strength of Saturn. First of all, why Saturn is getting directional strength at the seventh house? Well, who does Saturn hates the most in the astrological mythological world? It's Sun. What happens during sunset time? Sun is transiting the seventh house. Sun is going from light to dark, from strength to weak. Okay, and I don't mean strength and weak as in your horoscope. It's just that the light of the sun is diminishing. That's where Saturn is like, now I got you. Now you're coming to my realm. Then Saturn says, get out of here. This is my home. Because of the fact, Sun, threw Saturn deep into the ditches where he hurt his ankle, and that's why he's limping. This is why there's so much animosity. This is why father and son never get along whenever these two planets are together in a house. But seventh house represents what? Business, negotiations, contracts, marriage, commitment. So what is marriage? Marriage is being committed, being loyal, making sacrifices, putting your duty towards your spouse or your business. So who has that best quality? Saturn. Saturn has that best quality. Saturn gives its most guiding light when it's in the seventh house. So you will find these people, and especially when I'm doing like my relationship reading, so many are like wreaking havoc in their mind. Oh my God, I got Saturn in the seventh house. Please help me. I'm doomed. And I used to think like that back when I was 22, 23. Oh my God, Saturn in the seventh house. Oh no. However, Saturn is what you need to make a marriage work. Why? Because Saturn is not about BS materialistic things and how many jewelries you bought your spouse, or how good of a food you cooked to your spouse, how many times you said I love you. Those things don't make a marriage last. What makes a marriage last is the practicality, is being committed, making sacrifices, compromises. So Saturn here negotiates between man or woman, or man, woman, woman. Saturn says, okay, let's negotiate. Let's come together and build something, and let's be committed, let's be loyal, and let's do things in a fair manner. This is why a business deal should be made around sunset time, or whenever Saturn transits the seventh house in your particular chart. That is the great time to make a business negotiation. That is a great time of telling your spouse I love you. Don't tell your spouse I love you when Mars is transiting the seventh house. Your spouse is gonna get angry for you to say that. But I don't want people to be going by clock. See, that's another thing. You become a slave then. Don't let astrology make you a slave. Oh my God, I gotta do this now. Like, this is why I do not discuss, about Mahurta. Meaning, like, let's say today's Sunday, and I'm not gonna name the nakshatras, but if moon is transiting these 5 or 6 nakshatras, it's not good to do any activities on a Sunday. If moon is transiting certain other 5 nakshatras or 4 nakshatras, it's not good to do any activities on Monday for those things. Now imagine if you learned this, which I did, and it bothered me psychologically a lot. And that's why I stopped looking at where moon was transiting. Because then I would be like, because when my uncle showed me this, like, okay, so on sun, this and nakshatra is transiting, you shouldn't do any activities. And then I became a slave to it for a while. Like, I wouldn't travel because moon is transiting this nakshatra. Oh my God. It causes psychological havoc in you. So you get over that, obviously. Because you have to realize, if you want to practice this thing, you don't follow your own chart. As much as people say, oh, I learned from my own chart, or people say you should look at your chart every day. No. There's certain fine rules in astrology. If you're going to follow astrology as a professionally, don't look at your chart. If you're just going to learn by looking at it, look at your chart 10 times a day if you want. But I learned something very valuable back in 2010. Like, if you want to do this, stop looking at your chart. You're not going to learn, first of all, you're going to learn zero looking at your chart, because you're going to be so biased about everything that is happening, you don't learn nothing. Zilch. But coming back to this notion that Saturn in the 7th house is actually very good for marriage and commitment, long-term commitments. So if you're going to sign some sort of a contract and a deal, it's always great to do it during sunset time, when sun is going out, the ego is leaving, and you're trying to make a fair trade. This is why Saturn is business. As much as we think Saturn is a slave and a servant, it's actually a servant for other people, giving yourself in service to other people. You can do that while you're a business person. Saturn knows how to negotiate, how to trade, how to yell at the other merchant. Hey, no, this is the price I want. Sun doesn't want to do that. Sun is the king. He wants what he wants, where he wants it. Sun doesn't do well in 7th house in business. You'll piss off other people in negotiations, so hardly you'll ever get a deal going. Like if you look at, Steve Jobs' chart, he had Sun in the 7th house. Just look at all the biographies and documentaries on him, how he pissed people off because he just wanted to do things. And he wasn't a good guy, as many people think. Oh, he's such an inspirational person. Oh my God, he is like the god of tech. You don't know how he was in personal life. He said so many bad things to his employees. He gave sometimes zero stock to some of his oldest employees. Do you think that's a great thing? I don't think that's a great thing. And I don't care if some people are Apple fanboys here or fangirls. Oh my God, how can you say that about Steve Jobs? I can say it because I can see the character internally of a person. So it's not a great thing. Oh my God, he's such a great businessman. You know how many harsh contracts he made, how many advantages he had to take to become who he wants to be? So this is why you can clearly see wherever the sun is placed, how the character is going to be. Sun has no strength in the 7th house. It's dying in the 7th house. So this is why a person will always take advantage for themselves. There's no fair negotiations with the sun in the 7th house. Then you look at the 10th house, where Sun and Mars get the full strength. So here what does Sun represent? Sun is not negotiation. Sun is not business dealings. Sun is not fairness. Sun is what it is, meaning whatever the decision the king gives, that is the decision that we make. So Sun is authorities, father. So when father says something, you cannot negotiate. Right? In India, if you negotiate it, your father will slap you. When father says something, you do. So this is why authority, 10th house. Okay? 10th house is the society outside, dealing with the world outside. You need to have strength. This is why Mars gains directional strength in the 10th house. The soldier goes out and fights for a righteous thing, righteous path. So at noon, like right now it's 10:23, but around noon time, like from 11:30 to 1 o'clock, sun is going over to the 10th house, where it's the brightest, where it's the hottest. That's where sun is gaining strength. So what activities do people do at 10th house? If you want to talk to your bosses, if you want to deal with any situation related to the government, if you're trying to seek guidance of your father, you're trying to seek guidance of your father-like figure, like mentors and bosses, this is the period where you deal with them. This is the period where you talk to them. Like, and when is the most time we talk to our bosses? Probably when we're trying to seek some advantage, right? We're trying to get some promotion. We're trying to get that project that he's promising and hasn't given it yet. Well, when the boss is at its brightest, when the boss is willing to see you, guide you, give you direction, that's when you ask boss for that direction. Say, hey, give me direction. I want to do better. This is always a great time when Sun is transiting the 10th house to talk to your bosses? Or when is the right time to send a resume? When is the right time to send a resume, talk about jobs? Is when either the hora of the 10th Lord is transiting or operating in your daily hora, which you can now get an app, you don't need to calculate it, or when Sun is in the 10th house, simple. You don't even need to worry about the hora. When Sun comes in the 10th house, best period to look for a job. When you send out resume, send it out when Sun is in the 10th house. Because you're trying to please an authority to give you service. And that's the same thing with Mars. When you do any kind of a physical activity, when you want to take on challenges, when you want to compete in something, the best time to compete is when either Mars is transiting the 10th house or around noontime. So, for example, most of you who are in India are very adamant about competitive exams. You know, it's so strange, man. I don't get this. Even for a bank job, you have to give competitive exams. I mean, here in bank in US, you go out and fill out an application. They call you for an interview. If you have the credential of finance MBA, they're like, okay, you get the job, you don't get the job. There's no competitive exams. So that's strange, very strange. Like there's competitive exams for everything. For bank job, for administrative jobs, for this jobs. And that's got to stop. I think if I was a prime minister of India, I'm like, forget these competitive exams. These students have already gone through enough trying to get their bachelor's and master's degree. That's it. Just pick them from their qualifications. Don't make them go through these rigorous competitive exams. You know, but it is what it is. So any kind of a competition happens when you have the full strength of Mars. So this is how the use of directional strength comes into play in our life. So now let's talk about the opposite. You have Mercury, Jupiter in the 7th house. Complete opposite of their directionless. What happens to this person? This person always needs guidance of other people to learn something. They always need somebody opposite to help them study. You know, in colleges you have study groups when you meet with a bunch of friends, because some of these people may have their Mercury, Jupiter in the 7th house. So they need that group setting. They need other people's knowledge to help them study and learn. So obviously when the sunset is happening, I wouldn't that wouldn't be the greatest period to like started learning something. You will not retain it. If you want to retain something, do when the Jupiter Mercury are transiting the ascendant or the early morning hours. So when it's noontime, and let's say you want to make up with your spouse is mad at you. She doesn't want to talk to you. She doesn't, or you made him mad or something. Don't go into the noontime and try to say, hey, let's make it up. No, you know what is active during noontime? The ego. Ego, strength, violence, courage, fighting ability is strengthened at noon. That's not the period where you should negotiate with your spouse or make things better with your spouse. When is the right time? It's either during sunset time when there's commitment of Saturn. When Saturn says, okay, let's negotiate. Or nighttime, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, when Venus and Moon are greatly strengthened. And especially if you look at the original placement of planets too. Venus originally is Mool Trikona, is in the 7th house. So again, we see that the sunset time period where sun is not going towards setting, when it's literally about to just set completely, that's the twilight time. Don't do it when the sun is just right there. Then it might be in the 8th house. Then all your negotiations will go to waste. Do it when the sun is just right, very little above the horizon. Now, if you want to do negotiations, if you are trying to, make some sort of a deal, don't do it at 6 a.m. in the morning. Because of the fact There you will have tremendous amount of ego, and your intelligence will be shut down. Trying to make any business decision early in the morning, you'll have your intelligence shut down. Why? Because that's where Saturn loses its direction. What is the Saturn's job? Saturn has the Stampana Shakti, meaning that the power to stop something on its track. So if Saturn is on the head, there's no intelligence to negotiate. So this is why don't get married early in the morning at 6 a.m. because there will be no intelligence on how to deal with the marriage. So this is how beautifully you can take the strengthening of the planets. Now, one thing you will also realize, if let's say Mercury and Jupiter are strengthened in the ascendant, what is the gain of the first house? Is the second house. Whenever these planets are in the second house, it becomes semi good direction. It's no longer the best, but it's okay. Moon and Venus, when they're in the fifth house, they're not in their full direction, but it's the gain of the fourth house, the fifth house. So it's okay direction. So same thing with the seventh house. Saturn receives full direction in the seventh house. But when it's in the eighth house, and I'm not talking about the sunset time period. Don't look at it in that way. I'm talking about the placement of planets. So Saturn, when it's in the eighth house, it's not in their fully directional strength, but it's okay. It knows how to manage itself out of very dark situations. So even if you had the hardest deal to make, you will somehow be able to find that strength. When Mars and Sun are in the ninth house, it's not the full direction, but it's second from itself. Second from the, what am I saying? 11th house. Mars and Sun in the 11th house. Second from itself. What is the 11th house? Achievements, recognition, awards. Who gets recognition and awards? Mars. When a soldier becomes a hero, he gets this medal badge and the prime minister or president is putting on it. That's the 11th house. And Sun is all about recognition. You recognize the Sun. Oh, wow. Sun is going to fulfill my desires. He's the authority. So second from each directional strength becomes this 50% strength as far as direction is concerned. 12th from itself will be the loss of that direction. This is how you can go. But mainly if you just look at the directional strength, that's where you should understand a person's life and chart. Okay? So that's what I wanted to make it clear today with the directional strength. So, any questions regarding directional strength here? Man, this is going too fast. Okay, so Sun and Venus in the ascendant in natal chart, Sun and Saturn in the 10th house in Navamsha. That does not mean anything to me. You guys are giving me like two different equations and say make something out of that. What is that? What can I say with Sun and Venus in the first house and Sun and Saturn in the 10th house without looking at the full chart? Because I can make a hodgepodge out of it and give you an answer, but I think you're probably looking for the right answer. So what I can say with Sun and Venus in the ascendant is a person who definitely always like to present themselves in a very nice and good manner. You are the person who gets greatly recognized for not only your leadership quality, but your ability to present yourself professionally. You get greatly influenced by your spouse. Your spouse becomes the source of your light and ego. All the directions that you want in life comes through the spouse. However, when it comes to you listening to your spouse, your ego comes into play. What did I just say about the directional strength? Sun in the ascendant becomes so hot that a person does not want to take advice of a Venusian thing, which is right next to you, your spouse. They might be giving you a great advice, but your ego will not let you do that. Now, if I say Sun and Saturn in the 10th house in Navamsha, it has nothing to do. I cannot relate that to your Sun and Venus in the birth chart. It's useless. It's a stupid statement. But Sun and Saturn in the 10th house, regardless, I don't know what sign they're in, but it shows that your karmas of your marriage, second half of life, will require great amount of sacrifice, duty, commitment. And especially because Sun is the father, Saturn is the son. And whenever they're together, they're always going to be in dispute. So this shows that one either gets themselves into dispute with authorities in the second half of life, or especially through activation of marriage, or you hate taking orders from your spouse, you hate taking orders from other people. So the older you get, the more you hate, like, oh my God, I'm not going to do this, what you're telling me. Something inside me is ticking when you tell me that. When you give me orders, I don't like that. So whenever a person has Sun and Saturn in the ascendant, or I mean, in any place in the Navamsha chart, shows they will not like to take advice related to that house. So if, let's say, your spouse gave you advice about your career, you just feel irritated, like, I don't really care, I don't need that advice from you, I know much better than that. If any kind of an authority comes and says something to you and orders you around, you will not like that. So that's what happens with this. So Saturn in the 7th house in Aquarius, Sun in the ascendant in Leo. So this is a very interesting position, because obviously Saturn is very, very powerful in the 7th house, because not only is full directional strength, but it's in its own Mool Trikon sign of Aquarius, which shows that one is willing to always commit themselves in a partnership, and commit themselves, put their sacrifice into play for relationship and marriage. One is always, willing to be disciplined, structured about how they perceive. Like, you want commitment within your relationship. But now also the father is looking upon the 7th house, which shows that the father always somehow tends to put ego within your relationship and marriage. Father somehow always influences your marriage. If, let's say, you're married and you're dealing with your father, somehow you always see that father somehow causes problem within the relationship. Or what also happens now, your ego, your hot ego, cannot see the sacrifices that you should be making within your marriage and relationship. So as much as Saturn is in a beautiful placement, Sun is in a beautiful placement, both in their own Mool Trikon sign, but now they're looking at each other. So your ego is taking over your commitment, and your ability to sacrifice within the relationship and marriage or business makes you question your own authority. You lose your sense of worth. You lose your sense of kingship. So when you're sacrificing so much, you're like, wait a second, what about me? And you always juggle this. This is the confusion that you always run into. And this is where you have to find the balance that, okay, my ego is separate from my ability to give my commitment and sacrifice within the marriage. But I cannot match these two, because once your ego comes into the marriage, problem happens. And when you keep sacrificing without paying attention to your own physical self, your health suffers. So this is the dynamic now these two are playing, as much as they're strengthened. And also with Saturn and Sun in Kendra. Planets in Kendra can give you a great clue about the direction of the career of a person. Like, this can represent government related work, government administration related work. This can represent executive management related work. And depending upon where your Jupiter is and how your 5th house is, will also give the direction as to what the educational direction might be. But usually I see government people in mechanical engineering, civil engineering, law. There's this great need to play that game of king and servant. So Venus and Mercury are in the 6th house in Aquarius. So that means you are a Virgo ascendant. So what's happening here? First of all, second lord and ninth lord is in the 6th house. Then the first lord and the 10th lord are in the 6th house in the sign of Aquarius. So in a way, first of all, it causes actually a pretty good Raj Yoga, which shows that through competition, through defeating your enemies, you will rise in life. And your enemies might be actually very young people, male, female around you. Your colleagues may actually be your most biggest competitors. This also shows that one will be attracted towards attaining education in fields of either science and research, going into research related to DNA. Obviously, I don't know exactly where Saturn is placed, so this statement can be completely wrong. But this also shows that your spouse is dedicated towards service, dedicated towards social services. Your spouse will be very good at accounting, being very good with budgeting things. Very eccentric. You and your spouse are both very eccentric personalities. Very hard to understand each other. But also you're both about society, both about the collective things in life. And one thing I also see in this here is that after marriage, you will adopt small pets in your life. And especially your luck will rise by adopting pets. Why? Because 9th house of luck goes into the 6th house. So now that person needs the protection of the 6th house. The best way is, like getting a pet, nurturing a cat or a dog, whatever, a bird. People get parrots. I mean, there's a whole lot to this placement, which I won't say, but that's what I can tell you right now, because I don't know which nakshatra and pada they're in. So you have, dude, this is going too fast. What Rahu? Okay, so you got Venus, Mars, and Rahu in the 1st house of Sagittarius ascendant. Well, first of all, your spouse is going to be very flamboyant, very strong personality. You naturally have great love for photography, modeling. You have great interest in media and especially being a great exotic, performing artist. Whether it's actual entertainment or it's actually law or finance, you're going to be a great performing artist in your field of whatever you pick. Naturally, you will always be attracted to foreign people who are very masculine and very energetic in their way, who are very physically active. Naturally, this person shows there's great amount of love for sports and being physically active, hiking, running. But education wise though, technical education is always seen, especially related to like technical designing, photography, graphic designing. Because what is happening here? Third Lord Rahu, because remember Rahu co-rules the sign of Aquarius. Third Lord Rahu sits in the ascendant with the 5th Lord Mars. 5th house is what? Bhavat Bhavam of the 3rd house. Then you have the 11th house of achievement, 6th house of daily routines, and sitting in the ascendant. I mean, there's a lot more I can say about this, but again, I don't, because a lot of negativity can come out too. However, this is mainly about a person who will do excellent in technical education that helps you express yourself creatively. Usually, this can create a great photographer or somebody who goes into like electronic arts. But also, if Jupiter somehow aspects this alignment, one will make a great attorney, a great lawyer, especially if Jupiter is in Kendra. I see again, when I answer these questions, I don't know exactly what is being influenced, because one influence of a planet will change everything. So Jupiter and Kendra can actually make a person interested in logic, statistics, and law, like career. And you may actually pick either intellectual property law with this Venus, Rahu, Mars with the influence of Jupiter. You may pick entertainment law. So you just have to see how the dynamic of the entire chart is playing. Mars, the Dhara Karka, and 7th Lord in the first house of Libra. Wait. Mars and Dhara Karka. Well, what is the Dhara Karka? Who's the Dhara Karka? Is Mars the Dhara Karka itself? Oh, okay. Mars, Dhara Karka, and 7th Lord in the first house of Libra ascendant. Well, first of all, this shows me that at the age of 25, you will have the most passionate relationship. Shows your spouse will be very liberal and diplomatic in nature. Spouse will be around, I don't know if you're a male or female, but if it's a male, then spouse will be around like 5'7", 5'8". Spouse will have a reddish tan complexion. Spouse will have an oval face, long nose, but long prominent nose. Long thick eyebrows, especially towards the end, they might have an edge. Thick head of hair. Your spouse is going to help you greatly in your ability to be physically fit. Your spouse will be very good with being your business partner in life. And obviously, if you run through Aries Charadasha or Libra Charadasha, that would be a very easy time period to predict somebody's marriage or your marriage. I don't know how this Mars is in Navamsha, so this is a half-assed question and answer here, because depending upon what sign Mars goes in Navamsha, I mean, whatever I'm saying, it can go completely opposite there. But this also shows great interest in sports for you, being very athletic. And also, I can probably say if Mars receives high Ashtakvarga points, 11th from itself, you most likely will have an elder sibling. If it also receives high Ashtakvarga points, 3rd from itself, you most likely have a younger sibling as well. If both are low from Mars, you might be the only child. That's one of the ways that I've learned to see siblings as well. Not the sex of the siblings, just do you have siblings or not? Because remember, Mars is a kark of siblings. So if Mars is receiving high, great, amazing points 11th from itself, what does that signify? That you have benefits of elder sibling, guidance of the elder sibling. So Mercury in the 4th house in Mercury Mahadasha for Cancer ascendant. So Mercury for you rules the 3rd house and rules the 12th house. Goes in the 4th house in Libra. So that's the information that I'm going to go by. I don't know the nakshatra placement. I don't know Mercury's position in the Navamsha. But this is the period you're going to move away from your home. You will get foreign opportunities. You will be very strongly interested in business, especially business related to either land, hospitality, and definitely you will attain real estate through your own effort. And in this time period, You will learn a whole lot of things from the privacy of your own home. This is also the period where you will have great support of the in-laws. But again, I don't know if how your 8th house or your 9th house is, but seeing Mercury as a third lord here, your father-in-law will help you greatly with your advices in business. This is also the period where your siblings will most likely get married if you have siblings. You will have great interest in counseling, advising, consulting in this time period. But also what's going to happen is definitely you're going to move away from wherever you are. And most likely there's going to be a foreign opportunity that's going to come and take you. You're not going to go for it. See, what's happening here is 12th Lord is in the 4th house. That means the 12th house energy is coming into the 4th house. The 12th house is foreign lands. Foreign energy is going to come into the 4th house and then take you. But a lot of travels will be happening on behalf of not only career, but also on behalf of the mother. But of course, there's other things, a lot of other things that we can say here. But I don't like to say them. So yeah, that's that. See, that's the thing about these placements that you guys give me. I have to really take my time mentally, even though I'm live, as to what I should say and shouldn't say. Because there's a whole lot more I can say that can affect people psychologically. But I try to give there's two sides to each coin, so I just give the other side of the coin. You have to remember that. Super chat. Okay, so I guess we are good today. So anyway, guys, I know yesterday when I made the what was it, yesterday? Or wait a second, hold on. Let me see here. Because I know a lot of you were... Oh yeah, the live focus with the Dasha video that I made literally 3 days ago. So I've actually opened up the Charadhasha reading. So I can show you through Jaimini perspective what is currently happening, what has happened before of your Amatya Karka, Atma Karka, Dhara Karka, what are some of the things you were dealing with those Karkavastha of planets or Chara Karkas of those planets. So that is there on my website. I think it's option 15. A lot of you were asking about Vimshotri Mahadasha. See, Vimshotri Mahadasha becomes a bit complicated because I have to really camouflage a lot of negativity. Here the Karkavastha is the same thing, but it's much more simpler for me. Jaimini, my brain connects more with Jaimini now, more than anything else. So yeah, if you need the reading, it's on astrologykrs.com under shop section. And I know many of you were asking for the moon reading. I might bring the moon reading back. I might. I don't know. Just look for it by today or tomorrow. Because a lot of you wanted to know about, planetary placements from the moon. So I'll do that. Okay? Otherwise, we'll see ya. Bye.